Hi everyone, this is Melanie and Laura with A Creatively Crafted Life, and we're doing another card in our Christmas card series. And this week's theme is mass producing Christmas cards. So Melanie's going to walk us through how to do a bunch of your Christmas cards at once.
So very first thing you need to do is plan out your card, right? You need to know exactly what it is that you want to do, and you want to gather all your supplies in one place. I've even been known to make a mock-up before I start, just to make sure I do have everything. I don't know. Have you ever tried mass-producing cards before?
I haven't actually, so this will be interesting. And I want to try it this year because I have a few more cards that I need to do than normal. But so when you say mock-up, do you actually, like, you do a sample card, basically?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it's still a card I can send out, right? It just, I walk through the whole process. I make sure I've got all the glue, all the adhesive, all the little bits and bobs, everything that I need. So that way you kind of know what steps are coming and what steps you can kind of group together and do all in one shot. So for instance, I know I'm going to die cut that ornament border, and gluing takes a long time. So what I did was applied some stick-it adhesive on the back of a full sheet of paper. So rather than do individuals, I just glued the whole sheet down in one shot, and we're just cutting it into more manageable pieces so that I can run it through the machine. Now here what I'm doing, actually, this is just cutting the card panel that we're gonna glue the ornament thing on here. The other thing to think about, like this one has a few layers, like it's got 2 layers and it's got the ornament that's separate. To streamline or make it faster, single layer cards obviously are going to be even quicker. Right. So you can cut out steps that way. So I guess it depends if it's December 2nd or if it's December 15th. which route you want to go. The beginning of the month they're fancy, and at the end of the month they're like, just be happy you're getting a card.
It's got a sticker and some glitter on it, and ta-da.
Exactly. So here's where I'm putting the sticker down. And again, a single sheet's way easier to apply than small pieces. Now,
do you like using the stick-it more than the double-sided tape?
I like both. The nice thing about stick-it is it's thinner. Right. So when you're running it through a die-cut machine, it's much easier to cut.
Doesn't add as much bulk?
Yeah, it's not so much bulk. It's almost like when you use the Be Creative tape, it's like it doesn't quite cut all the way through.
Oh, okay.
And there's a time and a place for that. So, for instance, like the birthday cards we did a few weeks back, I wanted it to stay stuck so that I could color in there. So in that case, that made sense.
Oh, okay.
In this one, I want it to pop out of the die as easily as possible. So keep all those little release papers because they come in handy. And I pre-cut this. I don't know what I was thinking. I should have just used the full sheet, but I didn't. I cut the cardstock first, and so that's why you see me gluing 2 different panels on here. So don't do what I say, do what I say, don't do what I did. Because this adds an extra step in there. But
don't follow the picture, follow the words.
Yeah, exactly. We're just testing to see if you guys listen. Yeah, so basically that's the main difference between the two. The other one is the stick-it is not permanent until you actually burnish it, whereas the Be Creative tape is like, boom.
Right, as soon as you put it down.
Yeah, it's very sticky. So now we're just doing the mass die cutting. Again, combine all your steps together so that you only have to bring your die cut machine out once, that kind of thing.
And this had 2 dies, one for the body of the ornament, and the other one is, which you'll see in a little bit, is the outline, right?
Correct, yeah. So it's actually 2 separate dies. You buy them separate.
Oh, okay.
You don't need the background one. You could use this without, but because I wanted to apply embossing powder on this, I'm using the stick-it to hold or to adhere the embossing powder versus using an ink. Right. And it would be much harder to do with the outline, because how do you apply the insides? Right. You'd either have to color it in or die cut a whole bunch of other images, and this was just easier. A couple tips for die cutting though, when you're deciding or mapping out your card, pick something that's not too detailed. So this is actually, it's detailed, but they're fairly large pieces. There's not a lot of little bits that get stuck. And that way they pop out fairly easily. And of course, because of the method I'm choosing to do here, you have to line these up, and that's a little bit of an extra step. You could definitely streamline this by only die cutting the outline, adhering that to a basic card panel, and you could color them in, or you could die cut them twice and fill them in with a different color cardstock or pattern paper if you wanted to, and do some sort of like inlaid technique or whatever. But I opted to just go this way. The nice thing about this is, if I wanted to put this on foam tape on top of the card panel, I have that option.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So if you wanted to add more depth. I chose not to because, again, we're trying to streamline the process a little bit. I did mention the Be Creative tape. You need to burnish it to kind of make it permanent. Up until then, it's repositionable. So that's what you see me doing here. And, of course, I'm using the release paper because there's adhesive sticking through.
Right.
And this is some Zing embossing powder. It's blue glitter embossing powder.
That is a really bright color.
It is. It is very bright. And actually, it discolored my finger a little. I don't know if you'll be able to see that here, but, as I'm...
Smurf fingers?
Smurf fingers, yeah.
It's a really nice color, though. And then once you heat it up, it looks really nice.
Yeah, it's fun. I think I got this at Hobby Lobby, probably in discount because that's how I buy most of my stuff.
Yeah.
Good deal. Can't pass it up.
Yeah.
So I just, burnishing it in a little bit so that it adheres, and then I'm just taking a fluffy brush to get off all the extra bits because I don't want any on the outline.
Right.
Because if you heat it, it will stick, right?
Right.
So I wanted to try and get as clear of or clean of an outline as possible. And in some of them, I didn't align it perfectly. And so some of the embossing powder you can kind of see on the edges. But you know what? I'm okay with it.
Well, and no one is going to notice that.
Right. Be nitpicky about it.
Right. No one's going to be as critical of it as you are, right?
Exactly.
That's always the... Yeah.
So again, same principle, right? Just do everything in one shot. That way you've got one great big mess. You only clean it up once. You don't have to worry about it tipping over and spilling everywhere because that never happens. I chose to work in a tray because it's a little bit more contained than a folded paper, but you can use that for sure.
Yeah, I don't think we show it here. I think we probably cut it out. But when you put the powder away, it gave me a little bit of heebie-jeebies because it's just kind of falling down. With the paper you can control it a little bit more, so funnel it a little more. You weren't funneling that.
Well, it does have a funnel tip in it.
Yes.
that goes through there, so it must have been just the angle that I was holding it. And then we're just going to take the heat gun and heat this up. I was trying to let you see how it, did its magic thing. And then I realized that my fingers were getting awfully hot. And, try the tweezers, see if that works. But it's quite floppy, which I was like, okay, there's got to be a better way of doing this. And again, this is all about streamlining your process, right? If something doesn't work, is there a better way you can do it so that you don't have to, so that you can go faster? And of course, it started blowing all over the place, so that wasn't so great. So if I spread them out a little bit, that seemed to work, and then I just used the tweezers to hold it down in the box. And yes, this beautiful box is, very expensive tool. But I do use it for when I spray mists and stuff like that so that I don't get the spray everywhere. I just put my project in there, and then now I use it for embossing, it looks like. So we're just making sure that all the embossing powder melts, and we've got all those pieces done. And now this is where a stamp positioning tool really shines. And that would be my other tip if you're going to mass produce. Use the tools that you have. Most things you can do without the crafting tools out there, right?
Right.
Do you need a paper trimmer? Well, you could use a pair of scissors. Do you need a stamp positioning tool? You can use a block.
Right.
But what's really great about them is they usually make your life easier.
Right.
And you can speed things up. So here's perfect. You get perfect placement every time because you just keep adding the panel of cardstock in and flip, done, move on. Now, I'm doing about 7 cards, I think, at this point, and I'm using Versamark. I don't really know how long Versamark will stay tacky because it will eventually dry. So, I probably wouldn't go much more than 10 before adhering the powder on it. That's just my own feel. But of course, you can try if you get a longer time frame from it. Go for it.
Yeah.
Another way to streamline this, if you didn't want to do embossing powder, is just use metallic ink.
Oh, okay.
You would totally skip this step,
Right.
and it would go that much quicker yet again.
Right.
So it just depends what look you're going for. Simple usually means quicker.
Right.
Right? So the less steps you take, the faster it's going to be. And we're just using, the good old heat gun. This time of year it gets its workout. And to see how it changes. We talked, I think, in the last video about how magical it is. I just love it. And I just use basic silver embossing powder. You could have used the same embossing powder again if you wanted to do the blue sparkly and really, bling it out. But I thought it would just give a little bit, while being shiny, still give you a little bit of a rest. Not overdosing on the
blue.
On the blue.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to break it up with a different color, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially on a simple card, if a couple of colors is nice.
Yeah. So you could definitely foam mount this. I opted again to go with my favorite liquid glue for paper. So that's this Tombow Aqua, I think it's called, or Tombow Mono Aqua. I don't know. We'll have the information down below. I just think it goes quicker, and it gives you a little bit of wiggle room when you're positioning it. So if you don't know where you want it to go, you got a little bit of wiggle room. And I'm just kind of centering that over top of the sentiment and giving that a little bit of a pressure. And then of course I've got a bunch of cards to do, so we're going to put a block over top of it just to hold it down while it dries.
And that's not on the card. That's not on the
card base.
Card base yet, right?
No, it's a panel.
Yeah.
But again, you could do all of this on a card base.
Right.
Definitely could. I like a little bit of dimension on my card, even a simple one. And so the panel's just slightly smaller than the card base. So you get a little bit of an outline around it. And I think that just adds something to it. There's a little bit of a drop shadow look or whatever to it.
Yeah. So is mass producing, I hate saying mass producing, but is it making a lot of Christmas cards of the same design? It's something you do a lot just to kind of speed things up around the holidays, because I know you have to do a lot of cards.
Yeah, I send out about 50 cards, so it's not like huge numbers. Like, I know some people that send out like 200. To be honest, I get kind of bored pretty quickly. So what usually happens is I start off making individual cards, and I'm all excited, and then December 15th comes around. No, just kidding. Because most of my cards go out of country, I like to have them done by the beginning of the month. So it's usually about Thanksgiving when I go into mass panic, and I'm like, I need to get 30 cards done in, a week. So that's when the mass producing kicks in. And I will usually do something like this, a very simple card. Like, I consider this a very simple card.
Right.
It'll take me an hour or less to do 7 cards.
To do a bunch of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how doing it, you pretty much streamline everything, but that's also very much how your brain works, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can do something like that. You can plan it out like that for yourself.
Yeah, and I know other people think the same thing, that's just very boring. I mean, it is repetitive, right? But that's what's great about keeping it simple, is at least it's repetitive for only a short period of time.
Right.
Can you imagine if you had to cope a color like,
No.
30 of the same cards, you'd get bored. So here I'm just adding a little bit of extra embellishment to it. I drew some straight lines to look like they're suspended, and then I just hand drew some bows on there. Again, I don't recommend this for a mass-produced card, but if this was a single card and you wanted to step it up a notch, you could get some silver thread and tie bows and glue them on. But there's 6 ornaments, I think,
5.
on there? 5?
Yep.
Yeah. For mass-producing, that would take way too long.
Yeah. But what's funny to me is that you say it's a simple card and, it's mass-producing it, but somebody's going to look at this and not even think that it's a very simple card, just because it does have those elements to it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you took the time to draw the line on it so it looks like it's suspended, and glitter always makes everything look really pretty. So
if all else fails, apply glitter.
Just throw glitter at it.
They may not always appreciate when they open the envelope, but in this case it's embossed glitter, so it's less likely to come off.
Right.
So just applying some foam tape behind here and then just adhering that to the card base. Again, you could use fun foam if you've got that floating around. I know I haven't actually priced it out, but people say that's cheaper than the 3M foam tape.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they say. So, you know, it's readily available through like Amazon. I think you can go to Target or Walmart or whatever and buy some and just cut out a piece slightly smaller than the card panel. Again, this is another step you can skip. If you're really pressed for time. I just added a few little sequins to the card just again to bling it up a little bit more. Again, it just depends on what your tolerance level is and how much time you have.
You know, if it's December 24th, not a lot of time.
Exactly. So that's the card, or I should say cards for this week. We hope you found some useful tips in mass producing. Please leave a comment below and let us know if you give this a try. And don't forget to subscribe. Until next week, happy crafting.